Don't say, if I could, I would. Say, if I can, I will. By Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn's famous words, don't say, if I could, I would. Say, if I can, I will, carry a powerful philosophy about personal responsibility, discipline, and the courage to act in the present moment. And when unpacked deeply, this simple sentence can transform the way we approach life, success, and our own potential. At its core, this quote teaches us that most people live in a mindset of excuses rather than execution. They imagine that if conditions were perfect, if opportunities were different, if circumstances lined up, then they would step forward and accomplish something great. Yet Jim Rohn cuts through that illusion with clarity, reminding us that greatness does not come to those who wait for perfect conditions, but to those who decide to act with what they already have right now. When someone says, if I could, I would, they're essentially admitting that their action is conditional, that their effort is dependent on external approval, resources, timing, or luck. But when someone declares, if I can, I will, they take complete ownership of their abilities and their choices. They no longer wait for permission, and they no longer use someday as an escape from responsibility. They begin to live with intention and self-discipline. This shift is subtle in words, but monumental in impact, because it transforms potential energy into kinetic energy, dreams into goals, and vague wishes into committed actions. And that is the very foundation of achievement. Consider how many people say, if I had more money, I would invest, or if I had more time, I would exercise, or if I had more confidence, I would speak up. But in reality, waiting for those conditions is simply procrastination disguised as logic, because the truth is, no one ever has the perfect amount of money, time, or confidence. What separates the achievers from the dreamers is not that achievers were given everything in advance, but that they chose to do what they could with what they had. And because of that choice, they grew into more. Rohn is teaching us that success is not about having before doing, but about doing before having. You don't wait until you feel fully ready. You move forward because you trust that readiness will grow out of action. This mindset aligns with another one of his teachings. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Which means that the real focus should not be on waiting for easy conditions, but on building ourselves strong enough to handle any conditions. By saying, if I can, I will, we accept that the measure of our lives is not in what we could imagine doing in theory, but in what we actually decide to do when the opportunity presents itself. And this shift creates an unstoppable force called personal commitment. Commitment is powerful because it eliminates hesitation. The person who says, if I could, I would, is still hesitating, still living in a conditional world, still waiting for green lights. But the person who says, if I can, I will, is already moving, already testing, already building momentum. Momentum is a law of life. Once you start, the next step becomes easier, and then the next, until the small beginning turns into a massive breakthrough. Think about history's great leaders, inventors, and creators. Thomas Edison did not say, if I could, I would invent the light bulb. He said, if I can try one more experiment, I will. And through thousands of failed attempts, he kept his commitment. Abraham Lincoln did not say, if I could, I would be president. He said, if I can keep running for office, I will, despite losing elections repeatedly. Oprah Winfrey did not say, if I could, I would succeed. She said, if I can rise above my circumstances, I will. And in doing so, she built one of the most influential media empires in the world. In every story of greatness, you will find not people who waited for permission, but people who declared, "If I can, I will." Another layer of Jim Rohn's wisdom here is about self-belief. To say, "If I can, I will," is to declare belief in your own ability, even if you are not yet an expert, even if you are not yet perfect. The phrase, "If I could, I would," is filled with doubt. It implies that you are unsure of your ability or that your action is dependent on luck. But "if I can, I will" is a sentence of power because it connects capability with action. It says, if there is even a possibility, even a chance, even a small door open, I will step through it. This attitude removes excuses and forces you to live at your highest level. Imagine a student who says, "If I could get good grades, I would study hard." That is backward. The act of studying hard is what creates the grades. But a student who says, "If I can sit down and study for 2 hours tonight, I will," is already aligning their potential with their action, and the results follow. The same principle applies to business, health, relationships, and personal growth. Success is never guaranteed, but action is always available. And when you commit to action, you multiply your chances of success. Rohn often said that the difference between success and failure is small disciplines repeated every day. The person who says, "If I could, I would," is always looking for one big opportunity, one magic chance, one perfect condition. But the person who says, "If I can, I will," understands that greatness is built in the little moments. If I can wake up early, I will. If I can read 10 pages of a book, I will. If I can exercise for 30 minutes, I will. If I can save $10 today, I will. These decisions seem small, but over time they compound into a life of extraordinary success. Rohn is telling us that success is not about someday, it is about today. Not about perfection, but about progress. Not about wishing, but about doing. There is also a deep psychological lesson here. The words we speak shape the way we think, and the way we think shapes the way we act. Saying, "If I could, I would," creates a mental frame of limitation. It makes you think about what you don't have, what you can't do, what isn't working. But saying, "If I can, I will," reprograms your brain toward possibilities. It makes you think about what you can do, what is within your control, what is available to you right now. This shift in language is powerful because words are the seeds of destiny. Every time you say, "If I can, I will," you are planting seeds of courage, determination, and responsibility in your subconscious mind, and those seeds grow into actions that change your life. In practical terms, adopting this philosophy means we stop waiting for perfect timing and start creating momentum. Too often, people delay action with phrases like, "I'll start when I have more money," "I'll start when I feel ready," "I'll start when things calm down." But the truth is, life never calms down. Money is never enough. Readiness is never complete. Rohn teaches us that life responds to boldness. When you declare, "If I can, I will," and take the step, doors open that would have stayed closed forever if you had waited. Opportunities are attracted to movement, not to hesitation. When you move, you send a signal to the world that you are serious, and life begins to align resources, people, and ideas to support your direction. On a deeper level, this quote challenges us to live with integrity to ourselves. To say, "If I can, I will," is to make a promise to yourself, and self-promises are sacred. When you break promises to others, you damage relationships. But when you break promises to yourself, you damage your confidence and self-worth. That is why many people struggle with low self-esteem. They have said to themselves 1,000 times, "If I could, I would," and never followed through, so they no longer trust their own words. But when you live by Jim Rohn's principle and say, "If I can, I will," and then actually do what you say, you rebuild trust with yourself, you rebuild confidence, and you begin to believe in your own ability again. Confidence is not built by wishing. It is built by keeping promises to yourself, one action at a time. Furthermore, this quote is a call to live with urgency. Time